Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kenny Conversation, brought to you by JEGS, the leader in high performance aftermarket car parts. Remember to go to jegs.com for everything and anything you need to fix your everyday car up or even your hot rod. Well, this is a special one to me. We don't do very many two boxes like this. Well, including me, it's three. You're looking at Mike and Justin Allgaier. We'll start with the dad first. How you doing, Gator?
I'm good for an old man, pal.
Oh, man, you ain't old. You're a legend. What about you, Justin? Where are you at? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually at home for once, which seems like a rarity. But I'm good. It's been a busy season so far, but I'm not winning as much as you are. So maybe I got to do a little more work here.
Stop that. And listen up, everybody. Here's what we're going to do. This is like family to me, okay? They're about 100 miles north of me. Of course, Justin's down in North Carolina, running that Xfinity car, winning everything, champion. But we're going to celebrate these two. Dad and son, this is very heartfelt, and it was something we've been wanting to do for a long time. Finally got them together. So, Justin, let's start like this. Let's go with your dad first, because I lost my daddy October 30th, 2011. Gator, my first recollection with you was, you and your beautiful wife, Dorothy, D&M Speed Shop. Justin wasn't even born. Let's just talk. Let's go right there. Let's go with D&M Speed Shop. How did it start? How did D&M Speed Shop start? And, how did racing ever even happen?
Well, I had an interest in racing, so I had a couple race cars. Wasn't very good, and didn't have the money to race them. And I was out on the mile for a sprint car race, and Mike Smith, which would be Danny's dad, had
Danny
a bunch
Smith,
of stuff.
yeah.
His brother was on top of their semi trailer, the semi trailer was quite a deal back then. Uh, but his brother fell off the roof of it and broke his arm or leg or something, and they were concerned they didn't have enough money to pay the hospital to get him out of the, get him fixed and get him out. I don't know how that all worked, but anyway, he had a bunch of wheels and stuff he wanted to sell, and so I bought them. And it's funny because I sold them before I had to leave, before I left the racetrack. It was pretty cool, and he had them sitting in his trailer for sale. I don't know. So anyway, that kind of got me interested in doing that, and then I kind of got some other stuff. I got hooked up with Bob Boyce and what have you. I don't know, and just started picking up stuff. I did all this at night, because I had a day job.
What was your day job?
At that time I was selling candy and tobacco.
Oh, what?
Yeah, and knickknacks, and there was a place that back then, I didn't have a job, so I went to the state or something, had a deal downtown, and I went down and I said, I'm looking for work, and they said, I don't know if we have anything in automotive, but I got this job and you can sell candy and tobacco. And I go, hey, it's work. So I started doing that, and I did that a while, and then I left there, but I did all the racing stuff at night, and I was a Mac tool man for, I don't know, 8-10 years. No, not that long, probably 5 or 6 years. And the rep, the reps changed, and the guy that was a rep now I didn't get along with him very good.
You're too nice. You're always nice.
I was number 2 in the district, and he was 27th or something like that. And he's in there telling me how I need to quit fooling with these silly race cars and get serious about selling tools. Which I thought about that, and I went home, and a friend of ours said, "Hey, try it. I mean, they don't have debtor's prison anymore, so if it doesn't work, they're not going to put you in jail." So I went back the next day, and he was riding with him, and I said, "I made up my mind. You're right." And he said, "I knew you'd come to senses." I said, "I'll be out in 2 weeks," and we quit. And Kenny, I'm going to tell you, it was one of the roughest times we ever had. The summertime, we did pretty good, but the wintertime was pretty lean. And then this kid come to me and he said, "Hey, you know what? I think I can build some frames if you could sell them." And
I know who that was.
we got together. Now you can carry that on from there.
Well, let's do like this. Justin, first of all, you're extremely patient. I know how much you love your daddy, and you stayed quiet for a little bit. What do you have to say about what your dad just said?
Well, funny story is, as I've gotten older, and we talk regularly, right? My dad and I talk every day, but I also hear all the stories, right? So racers that have been around for years, and even now, young racers or middle-aged racers for that matter, that their parents or their grandparents bought something from my dad. And I have to laugh because I tell my dad all the time he needs to pull his phone out and hit the record button and record these stories as he's going, because he gave you a 2-minute interval there of his past job history, but this number is significant, right? He forgot the fact that he worked at a gas station and he was street racing, or he was running from the police officer with his car, and the police came to his gas station and bought coffee in the morning, so he lost his license, had to walk to work.
He was drinking my coffee and eating my donuts and told me that I had a 55 Chevy, which Justin has a pedal car
that matches
it, black and gold. And he's in there eating my donuts. And he said, "You were out late last night." I opened the station at 7 in the morning, and I closed at 10 at night. So, I mean, 10 wasn't late for me because that was the only time I had to go do something. And this 61 Dodge pulled up alongside me, revved the engine up a little bit, and the light changed, and we had to go. And guy's on a motorcycle. He said I was doing over 115 mile an hour. I don't know if I was or not, but I ended up pleading guilty and walking for a year on that deal, whole year.
Yeah. My point of all of this, though, was the reason why I still am racing is because of the guy that's sitting on your side there in this video, because he wasn't afraid to try something and be bold in a time where I think a lot of people weren't, right? People kind of went with the flow a lot and just did status quo, and you and your brothers were never like that, right? And I think that that's what's made y'all successful. And it's been fun to be along for the ride. I've had a different story than my dad, right, in my racing and journey and in career, but it's been fun because I get to relive his journeys, right, and be part of the business and still be a part of that, and then have this kind of double life and be race car driver and kind of write this story over on the other side of it. And so I think as with your dad, you had great leadership and great examples of what that's supposed to look like. But you also had a great mom that you understood both sides of it really, really well, right? And
she was tougher. She was tougher than anybody.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Judy Wallace or Dorothy. Who are we talking about? Dorothy?
We're talking about Judy.
Both.
You're
yeah.
but I think that for me, it's been cool to see his journey and get to live a little bit vicariously through him, because I feel like his generation um, doesn't get the credit that they deserve a lot of times for what they accomplished with how little they had, and it's been pretty cool to watch what he's been able to accomplish.
Hang in there, everybody. We're celebrating Mike and Justin Allgaier today, and there's a method to this madness. Okay, I've made a lot of notes. We're studied up on this. We got 3 pages right here, everybody. Okay, so there's so much to say about you, Justin, but let's follow this. Let's follow this timeline real quick. D&M Speed Shop, Dorothy and Mike. Okay, so you just told us that you had a little automatic speed in your blood, and you're looking for a job, and you realize you can buy Danny Smith's wheels at the track, and then you sell them before you leave the pits. You just told us that's kind of the way it started. That's what's in your memory. Okay, so now we get the speed shop, and my big brother Rusty Wallace sells you leaf spring dirt cars, frame and cages, and I want to say it right here. Go ahead.
They're Chrysler kit cars with a Chevrolet front clip on it, is what they were.
And you were a massive boost in Rusty's life. Listen, there's things that happened years ago that we're not proud of. We begged, we borrowed, and we stole. And the good Lord, you pray every day for him to forgive you of your sins. But on behalf of my whole family, I'm the lover out of the bunch. I don't want to be too corny, but we love both of you. And in front of everybody, I want to thank both of you for helping my big brother Rusty get started, Gator. Tell me about those days of helping Rusty when he was just an old redneck and had nothing.
Well, he come up to me and he said, "I could build some cars if you could sell them." And I think we sold 57 that first year. Now just frame,
which is a lot.
That's incredible.
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah,
a lot of cars. And I got handling a lot of the Chrysler. They used Chrysler leaf springs, and I did some stuff with Tom Hamilton out on the West Coast. He was looking for some brake calipers, so I got on the phone to the people I was dealing with at Chrysler, and I think I bought the front calipers for $12 or $10 or something like that, and the rear calipers for $7. They were out of something that Chrysler was phasing out. You have to keep so many parts for the new cars, but as they get older, then that stuff becomes available, and they wanted to get rid of it. And Tom Hamilton made a career out of selling these brake kits that he put together.
Stock Car Products? Was that what it was?
Stock Car Products, Tom Hamilton, yeah.
Yep.
And, we had a good time just trying to work here and work there. That's what we did.
Okay, everybody, we're working on this base. Now we've laid a base. Now we know why Mike and Dorothy have become racers. You start D&M Speed Shop. You're selling everything. You help Rusty Wallace become who he is now today. Of course, along the way was John Childs and Don Kern. It was a tough road. Go ahead.
Charlie Chase.
Yes, massive part of Rusty's career. So once again, I want to thank you. Okay, let's do something. We're going to do like a movie. We're kind of talking to your dad here, Justin. I'm gonna talk about Justin Allgaier, and we're gonna say everything about Justin. I'm gonna say all this, and then I want you to respond, Justin, and then Gator, I'm gonna give you a chance, okay? But hold on here. All right, here we go. That's your boy right there. He's grown up now. He's a man. He's 38 years old, out of Springfield, Illinois. The great Justin Allgaier. Justin Stats, 2008 ARCA Series champion, 87 ARCA starts, 8 wins, 46 top 10s. That's an ARCA. We got a long way to go here, so buckle up. 2009 NASCAR Xfinity Rookie of the Year. Is that right?
Yep.
2024 Xfinity champion. That right there tells me you paid your dues. There was a little time between 2009, 2024. Now hold on. 4-time NASCAR Xfinity most popular driver. 2019, 2021, 2023, 2024. 290 Xfinity top 10s. I want to repeat that to everybody that's listening. 290 top 10s. That means in 290 races, he was in the top 10. NASCAR Cup starts right here.
You can leave those.
83. That's okay. This is part of your building block. Same as me, except you're better than me.
No, I don't know about that, Kenny.
83 NASCAR Cup starts, 2 top 10s. Now, we all know that the Cup Series will chew anybody up and spit them out. So that's neither here or there. 482 NASCAR Xfinity starts. 8 NASCAR truck starts. And this is a big one right here. Right now, you have 573 NASCAR starts. That's a big number. Now, I got a lot more to say, but I just want you to comment on when I tell you those great stats. What goes through your brain, Justin?
Honestly, I've struggled with it because
27 Xfinity wins, 290 top 10s. That's incredible.
it is. I've been super blessed, and you know, I love what I do. I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, and for me, it's always been about the family aspect of it. Right, my parents have gone to, up until the last couple of years, they've gone to almost every race I've ever run in NASCAR, and my wife and kids get to travel with me a lot. And in the moment, it's funny because I think in all sports, right, when you're living it in the moment, you're not attempting to set records or do things that other people didn't. You're just trying to compete at the highest level you can compete at. And yeah, you want to win, but we both know you lose a lot more races than you're ever going to win, right? I wish it was the other way around. Now, if you're Kyle Busch, maybe it's not the case because I think I'm, whatever, 9th or 10th on the all-time win list for the Xfinity Series at 27, and he's got 100, right? I mean, that's just, or 101 or 102, whatever it is. Those, I don't know that I can get to that number, right? Even if I won every race for the rest of my career, I couldn't get to that number. But I'm super proud of what we've accomplished, and I think for me, the end of the day, I look at it, and I could be back at home and I could be selling parts and tires, and I enjoy that role, and I've kind of taken more of that role on over the last couple of years. But every time I show up at the racetrack, I'm just thankful to be around people that I really enjoy being around, and have an opportunity to go do it. And I think a lot of that comes from my dad. My dad was never if it didn't work, you just worked harder, right? You just dig deeper, and if you got to drive all night, you drive all night. You got to work all night, you work all night. You do all these things, and I think for me, the way I've looked at it is nothing in this sport or really in this life is guaranteed. And if you want it, you better go get after it, right? No different than you, social media wise, right? You probably would have never have thought you would be doing the things that you're doing today. But if you didn't work hard at it, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, right? Or Charlie, for that matter, of helping you to work hard to be able to do this, right? All these things, I think for me, it's kind of become full circle of seeing his effort and his time, and the people that he's helped along the way. If it wasn't for the relationships that my dad made 50, 30, 20, 10 years ago, I'm not in the position that I'm in, right? I mean, your show that you do with Kenny Schrader, it wasn't for Kenny Schrader, I don't get an opportunity to make my first ARCA career start, right?
Hold on right there. Hold on right there. Okay, right now, I've got a great editor. Charlie, you're going to drop that picture right here. We're dropping it right now. Okay. So we edit this up and we're showing the picture right now. And you know what the picture is,
Oh, I
Justin,
know.
in your brain. Tell me what we're looking at here.
So I'm assuming this is the picture of Kenny Schrader and myself when I was driving a quarter midget.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of them out there,
Yeah.
but just tell me
Yeah.
about Schrader.
Schrader was, I mean, we both know Kenny.
Yeah.
And we both know his willingness to go race anything, anywhere, anytime, didn't matter what. And his daughter Dorothy and I are not that far apart in age, and the ARCA series used to come to Springfield, Illinois, to the Springfield Mile and race. And Kenny would come over after Michigan, and whether he was racing or he had a car back then. I think Bill Baird was the years that I really remember. Bill Baird was driving his car at Springfield, and he would come, and then his whole they would all Annie and Dorothy and Sheldon. We'd all go to the state fair and walk around the fair after the races were over. And my favorite Schrader story was, I'll never forget, we were at the fair and some guy walked up and he said, "Man, you look just like Kenny Schrader, but I know it can't be you because he was in NASCAR at the NASCAR race in Michigan today." And he's like, "I get that all the time." And he just kept on walking, and I had to laugh so hard. But
We just come up out of the tunnel
yeah,
at the fairgrounds.
yep, coming right into the rides. But I just remember, what I remember the most though was, we'd get in a car, we'd go and we'd get Steak and Shake, because Kenny, Schrader always had to have his Steak and Shake because they didn't have it everywhere like they do now. And we'd drive over and we'd park where the old Shahane's racetrack used to be. Anybody that's familiar with dirt track world, Shahane's was the place. Jeff Gordon and all the heroes used to go to Shahane's and race at Shahane's. And
Little Springfield, is that what it was called?
Yep, Little Springfield. And we would go and we'd sit in the parking lot, and Schrader would kick back and he'd be eating his cheeseburger, and he'd be talking about stories and reminiscing about old Springfield Speedway. And I think I learned the value of what the sport held at a young age from people like Kenny, right? Super successful on Sundays and in NASCAR, and just drove for the heroes in the sport and won NASCAR Cup Series races, right? He was that guy, and but he was still just Kenny Schrader, and that was probably one of the biggest reasons that obviously I loved racing and I wanted to be at the racetrack, but that was what really kind of drove me to want to keep doing it and keep going after it. And like I said, the relationships that my dad made 50 years ago, maybe kids or grandkids of those people that he was friends with, but ultimately that's what got me the opportunity to even be in the sport where I'm at today. And I don't take that for granted. And we race against, when we go dirt track racing, Kenny, we race against talented race car drivers every Friday, Saturday night that could do my job in a heartbeat if they just had the right opportunity. If they just had, the ability to go out and talk to people, if they just had the ability to go find a little bit of sponsorship, if they just had, the want, really. I mean, sometimes, you get caught up in what works for you in the moment, and you don't aspire to be anything bigger. You want to be the, you think your pond is pretty big until you realize that there's a bigger pond out there. But just super blessed to still be in this sport and doing it. And I'm proud of what we've accomplished, not only on the racing side, but also at the parts store and at the tire store, and what he's accomplished in his career. And it's all one big story that kind of molds itself together.
Okay, so this is difficult to do, but we're going to do it. All right, Gator, I'm gonna say these two things to you, and I want you to respond to these. Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna get to Hoosier Tire Midwest. We're gonna get way more to Justin, but this is a building block. Can't tell your story in 30 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna say this to Gator. Your son Justin, after the 2024 NASCAR Xfinity Championship, December 14th is recognized as Justin Allgaier Day in Springfield, Illinois. And that's not all. Your son, your baby boy right there. December 9th, 2025 is Justin Allgaier Day in the entire state of Illinois. You're the daddy. As they say down south, that's my daddy. Back here, we call them dads. when I say those two things just now about your baby boy right there, Justin Allgaier Day in Springfield, Illinois, Justin Allgaier Day, the entire state of Illinois. What's that make you feel like, Gator?
Kenny, I don't know how to even answer it.
I'm crying for you. It's
we
awesome.
it was both of those were very emotional, and it's really unbelievable. Here we started out, and just Justin said he wanted to race, so we got a quarter midget, and that's what we did. And
Schrader's fault.
well, he gave Justin his first helmet. I remember that. I still have the box, and I have the helmet that he gave Justin when he first started racing. But Kenny's been a very integral part of Justin's career in the early days. He helped us get a little help from STP and Chuck Spicer, great guy. He says, we don't have much to offer, but how about if we just buy a fire suit?
Wow.
We'll get him a fire suit. That was huge. And that was our sponsor that first year. So just stuff like that happens. But I mean, the city and the state recognizing Justin, I'm not a very tall guy, but man, I was about 12 foot tall that day. Those 2 days, I'll tell you. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Okay, so we all know it, but for the listeners that now know of Justin because championship, 4-time most popular driver. So we call you Gator, and then we call your boy Little Gator. Just, my name's Herman, and there's a reason. Why are you Gator?
Well, when my mom was pregnant with me, the nurse or doctor come in and said, all right, Mrs. Alligator, you can come in now. And so that was
this is great.
that was my nickname. And I've had it ever since.
A nurse, and as Paul Harvey says, and that's the rest of the story. So the nurse couldn't say Allgaier; she called you Alligator.
Well, and
great.
To your point there, Kenny, there are people that used to call the office and ask for Gator. And he'd pick up the phone, he'd say, this is Mike, how can I help you? And they're like, oh no, I'm on hold for Gator. people that should know and had no idea what his real name was. And they only knew him as Gator. And that was, there are people still to this day that don't even know his real name is Mike.
That is fantastic because, when something like that, that's you. I mean, that's just awesome. It's like saying the Intimidator. It's Earnhardt. Gator is Mike. And then you became a Little Gator. You wear that. I'm sure you wear that
Proudly,
badge.
yes.
Proudly.
I got that name in an ARCA race. So,
Springfield Mile.
Used to be back in the day, I'd go to the racetrack with my dad, which as a child, I got kicked out of the infield by Mr. Mike Helton. And as a young child, because, I was supposed to walk with my dad and stay with my dad. Back in the day, you had rules. You couldn't leave. You either had to hold their hand or you had to stay in the trailer. I got brave one night in Nashville and went out on my own. And Mike Helton grabbed me by the back of the neck and escorted me out. So not first good dealings with Mr. Mike Helton. But anyways, I was walking with my dad on down through the little pit area at Springfield, right? It's a little dirt pit area. And one of the crew members from one of the ARCA teams walked up and said, this must be the Little Gator that you always talk about as racing. And that was it. That was the moment. And listen, probably being called Little anything isn't a great moniker, right? But when you're Little Gator to somebody that I respect and appreciate probably more than anybody will ever know, I'll be little all day every day to his Big Gator. I've outgrown him in height, but I definitely have not surpassed what I feel like he's been able to accomplish in his life. And nor will I ever. I'll never be able to hold up to the person that he is. So
I don't believe that, but
Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Let's hold that. I got that in my notes. Okay. You talked about receiving little Gator in Springfield, Illinois. Listen to this nugget. That's a big one. 2006, Justin Allgaier wins his very first ARCA win on dirt at the Springfield Mile dirt. Now that's big enough as it is. But listen to this one. Becoming the first Springfield area resident winner in its 72-year history. Gator, let's go to you on that one. Okay, you win the race. Justin wins it. We know he's a hell of a dirt racer by now, but when you realize that he's the first area local winner in 72-year history, what's that make you feel like?
I didn't realize that. I thought there was somebody else that won it from around here, but maybe that's great. I don't know.
I think Ryan Unzinger will try to copy you there a little bit. He's an Illinois guy, and
Yeah.
he finally got the winning. And now he's not running ARC anymore. But when I saw that stat, would you all agree that Ryan was kind of going, "Hey, Justin did this," or is that just coincidence?
No, there's way more to that story.
Go ahead.
Bill Hendren was the car owner, and he was the car owner that was leading most of the race with
Bob Strait.
Help me, Justin.
Bob Strait.
Bob Strait.
Bob
Bill
Strait
Hendren was going to win his first ARCA race at Springfield with Bob Strait and led majority of the race.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And Justin had said about 20 laps, and we'd had trouble all day with the motor, and it was cutting out and stuff. And you didn't think he was going to be in the game, but at the end of the race, Justin had said, "I found something." I said, "What?" He said, "I'll tell you later." And coming into 1 and 2, he changed his line a little bit, and he come off just right on the guardrail and got beside Bob Strait down the back straightaway. And when they got down to the other end, Bob was not going to be defeated. He drove it in like there was no tomorrow, and there wasn't. He went up in 3, and we won the race. It was special. Same car owner as Unzicker.
Got it.
And then they
he's from Central Illinois,
retired
just like we
after
are.
that.
And he had been trying to win that race year over year. He felt like that, that was the reason he owned our car. He wanted to win, and that was his opportunity to go win that race.
And they won a lot of races, but they didn't win Springfield.
Yeah, it's the crown jewel. I raced there. It's a mile dirt. It was my very first win of my life.
Race.
Yeah, I
but
won
you
on.
Cheated. You cheated. You found some old tires.
Tell everybody. Okay, this is great because I kind of forgot about this. Okay, my very first win, everybody, was 1982.
No, it was your first race too.
True.
You hadn't raced before.
You're right. You're right. You all are finding out that I love Gator. Gator loves me. So 1982 was my very first race ever in a car. And I get Pat Walsh's Illinois street stock car. And we call Gator up. I go, "Gator, and you really helped me out. Now you tell the rest of the story about the tires."
Well, you said, "What do I need to run? Because I don't know." And I said, "Man, Kenny, if you could find some of those tires we used to run at Lake Hill and grew them, I think they'd be awesome."
We killed
them. They were.
Yep. So because of that, I had real race tires on, and they had DOT, Department of Transportation tires on. Hey, there's an old saying, Father John, he married Kim and I, and at pre-Cana class, Father John said, "Kenny, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to be a race car driver." And Father John said, "Be careful. Competition will kill you." And I learned at an early age, it's about the car. It's about the car. If the car's not there, you don't look good. Okay. So with those tires, Justin, we're going to ask your dad this one. You said that we used to race those tires at Lake Hill. Now, we just got done doing Herman Schrader. Kenny Schrader said to me, Gator. I remember Gator coming to Lake Hill Speedway in Valley Park, Missouri in the 70s. You were brand new and you were a Hoosier tire dealer. And I know that you're a Hall of Famer. I know you're a legend for Hoosier tires. Schrader said that we were all running Firestones. I was a kid. My dad's brother Mike. You brought some Hoosier tires and you said we got to get these Hoosier tires on these cars. They all had Firestones. Tell me about that. Do you remember that?
I had 2 sets of these tires, and I wanted to put them on somebody to make an impression. I put them on Kenny Schrader and Tom Hannick.
Yeah.
And guess who run into each other?
Schrader tells the exact same story. So, but that was your first. What made you come to Lake Hill? What made you come 100 miles south?
Went to Granite City on Saturday night, and Lake Hill runs Sunday night. So yeah. I slept in my truck, got up the next day, and Rusty had the shop down there then.
Yep.
And I go down there and wait till it was time to go to the track, and I did Lake Hill.
All right. We're jumping all around here. We're doing our very best. Okay. It's just me, everybody. I don't have people. It's just me. All right. This one I really like. Now we're going to go over to Justin a little bit. And Dad, after Justin, I want you to comment on this too. Okay. Listen to this. Justin Allgaier is Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s and Kelly Earnhardt. You are Junior Motorsports' longest and winningest tenured driver. Holy moly. The most famous race car driver besides his daddy. You had Dale Sr., you had Dale Jr. Dale Jr. could say, we're going to stop racing, and everybody listen right now. Dale Jr. is the most powerful man in NASCAR to this day. He really is. And you have raced for him, and you did not let that overcome you. In other words, he's so famous, and you are his longest running driver and winningest. Justin, how's that make you feel?
Special. It's extremely special. I got to go back to the story of how it started, because I think that really sets up why I have respect for kind of where I'm at today in my career. But we're Darlington, and the news had just kind of come out about me being replaced at the 51 car by Clint Boyer, right? And going to lose my opportunity to race in the Cup Series, which, I wasn't sad at, to be honest with you, because I was ready to quit racing at that point anyways, because we
all are.
Well, but, we had a really weird situation. When we went there, the you've lived this, what you're going to have, what we're going to have equipment wise and what we're going to have information wise turns out to be somebody forgot to dot their I and cross their T, and that wasn't really the case, right? We might have a car that says Hendrick Motorsports on the chassis, but it's 300 cars old of what the other guys are racing, stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I just hit a point in my career where I wasn't having fun anymore. I was miserable. We were showing up at the racetrack, and we finished whatever 7th at Bristol, or 8th at Bristol.
I think.
Yeah, 8th at Bristol, and nobody really even cared, right? It was just
in the Cup Series.
Yeah,
that's big.
Cared. And so I realized then that I was kind of over it personally. And anyways, long story short, I know I'm getting replaced, and I'm riding in the back of the truck, and I had qualified next to Dale Jr. a couple of times that year. And I told Stevie Letarte, who at the time was his crew chief, I said, you got to stop qualifying next to me, because I either got to walk on stage right before you or right after you. When 100,000 people and every person cheers 100% for Dale Jr., and then you walk across the stage to the next guy and they in a soul cheers for you, it's pretty deflating, right? So I said, you got to stop qualifying next to me. But anyways, we qualified next to each other. We're riding around in the back of the truck. And Dale looks at me and he says, "Man, I just want to tell you, I'm really sorry about the way things happened for you, and I'm sorry about your deal." He said, "You know, this sport isn't fair," and he's like, I feel bad for you. This is a guy that doesn't have to feel remorse for anybody. He doesn't have to. I mean, he's worked hard, right? Dale Jr. is an icon of the sport, but you know, yes, his dad was Dale Earnhardt Sr., but Dale has equally worked just as hard to become the racer, the person, the dad, all these things that he is, right? And he didn't owe me that, right? Nor does anybody. And I thanked him and I appreciated it, and we got to talking about his Xfinity car and Junior Motorsports, and he said we're kind of going through something similar. We're gonna have to let Regan go. I'm not really sure what the future looks like for the 7 car. We can't find sponsorship at the moment. We're trying to figure through all these different things. He says it's been really tough. Regan and I are really good friends, and I hate that we're not going to be able to run that car, and I hate that we're not going to be able to run Regan. And it was weird to me because I never really talked sponsorship numbers with the folks at Brant, right? They've been lucky enough to support me for a long time in my career, but I've never had the conversations of what racing costs for them or what they were going to spend in sponsorship or really for that matter, we talk about, does the program work? Can we get return on investment? All those things, but I never really wanted to know what that number was from them. And I had talked to their marketing, their head of marketing that morning, and he had given me a number of what they had kind of set aside if we were going to race again the next year of sponsorship. And I asked Dale, I said, well, how much sponsorship would it take to run that car, like to keep that car running? And he gave me the exact number.
Wow.
And what's weird about that is it wasn't like a solid number. It wasn't a whole number. It was kind of a random off the wall number. And 2 people in one day said the exact same number. And I just kind of looked up at the sky and I'm like, if that's a sign, I feel like that's got to be a sign, right? Like,
The first thing I thought, thank the Lord.
yeah, and you know, we we want to believe that we're the reason everything happens, but at the end of the day, you know, what is the definition of luck? When preparation meets opportunity, right?
Yeah.
We can be prepared, but you got to wait for the right opportunity, right? And that person, the man upstairs has got to give you that right opportunity. And I said, well, I'll have my people call your people, right? I did the whole. I felt kind of big time,
You big time.
even though I didn't have any people at the time. I'm gonna have my people call your people, and it wasn't but a couple of weeks later we put a deal together for me to go to Junior Motorsports, and Rick Brandt and Kenny. I think you've been able to meet Rick before, or at least have seen him in the garage area. But Rick is an incredible individual and somebody that I put right up there with my dad as far as people that I respect and I love his passion for his business and what they do and his work ethic. Right, he's a little crazy at times, work ethic
Like
wise. And I
me.
love that. I love it. It's awesome. But he's a family owned business. His aunt and his dad started the business, and he was able to come into Junior Motorsports, which is a family business, right? Dale Earnhardt, Kelly Earnhardt Miller, and the synergies between those two are really, really strong, and that's why you've seen a Brant Professional Agriculture race car for the last however many years it's been on the racetrack with me driving the car, because he believes in what I do and who I am. Two Central Illinois kids, right? Being able to be on the grand stage of NASCAR, but also he believes in Junior Motorsports and what we have, and it's been special to have that relationship and have bosses like Dale and Kelly and LW Miller and everybody that's a part of our group, because it it's special. And running the Daytona 500 this year for Junior Motorsports was a great extension of that, right? It was a big moment. It was a big deal, and it's something that I don't take for granted. And I've started the Daytona 500 before, but never in the capacity like I did this past time around. It was really a big deal and something that it was pretty awesome.
So, back to you. little Gator. I feel that Dale Earnhardt Jr. is an old soul. He's 50 years old, but he talks so intelligent. For him to recognize your situation, for him to recognize you're a good driver, and for him to have peripheral vision. I think Dale Jr. has great peripheral vision. His verbiage is like he went to one of the greatest colleges in the world. Do you find your relationship with Junior like he's super smart? He's super intelligent? Yes? No? What do you think?
He really is, and I think it's unique because to your point, he didn't have that formal schooling like a lot of folks did, right? What Dale did was, and Dale will tell you this, he had a lot of fun when he was younger in his racing career, right? But I think that Dale Earnhardt Sr. was the visionary of the sport, right? Dale Earnhardt Sr. He not only focused on his racing program and how to be the best race car driver, but he had his hands in a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that made the sport function because he wanted to see the sport grow and and thrive. Dale Earnhardt Jr. took that another level. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is somebody that I I don't know that the fans, as much as they love Dale and as much as they support him, I don't know that they'll ever know the depth of what he has done for the sport behind the scenes. In the closed door meetings, the phone calls, after hours to make sure that our sport stays on track and goes in the right direction.
He single-handedly, Dale Jr. single-handed, Marcus Smith just admitted it. He said it on social media. Marcus Smith, who owns North Wilkesboro, on X, he said the reason Wilkesboro's back is because of Dale Jr. That's
They got a
powerful.
crew together. This is no lie. They got a crew together and went up there and they pulled weeds and they weed eated and cut the grass and cleaned the asphalt so that iRacing could come in and scan the property because Dale said it'd be a shame for a racetrack as nice as this and as cool as this to be lost in the wash, right? Because at the time it was just sitting dormant. Nobody was doing anything with it. And Dale Jr. spent the money to go to North Wilkesboro, clean the place up, so that iRacing could scan it because he didn't want that racetrack to go away. And you know what? That sparked a whole conversation, right? That got the state of North Carolina to donate money, and sponsor a bill to be able to put money into the revival of North Wilkesboro. That put Marcus Smith in a position to be able to take a racetrack like that and turn it back into something that we saw on Sunday night. That's probably one of the best races I've ever seen in North Wilkesboro. And we talk about this race car, this next gen car not being a great short track race car. It was 3-4 wide. Granted, it was hard to pass. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but it was a great race. And if Dale Jr. doesn't put an interest in reviving North Wilkesboro for iRacing, North Wilkesboro doesn't happen. And what are we going to do? We're going to race this all-star race at some racetrack again that doesn't probably warrant the feel and the. I mean, you remember the All-Star race when it was in its heyday, right? I remember going to Charlotte and packed house, flash bulbs going off because back then everybody had a camera with a flash on it back then, and you'd take the green flag and it'd be flash bulbs and it was awesome. We lost a little bit of that, and I think North Wilkesboro has brought a lot of that back, and it's been fun to watch.
Gator, Daddy. So when Justin comes back to you and he says, "Okay, Dad, Dale Jr. talk to me." What did you think when your son is looking at reviving his career? Not it's not like you went and looked for this. You qualified next to each other. You say the same number. Gator, you're a man of the Lord. So they qualify next to each other. The financial number's the same. When your boy tells you about this, what are you thinking?
Oh, it was a blessing. It was strictly a blessing. And look where it's gone. So yes, it's been great.
Okay, I want to thank you for that, Justin, because I wasn't ready to go down that road yet, and thank you for telling that story because that would have took a whole another layer of questions to get there. You saved me a lot of work. Okay, Gator. I'm assuming you're at Hoosier Tire Midwest right now.
Yes, sir.
How did we get from D&M Speed Shop where you're to Hoosier Tire Midwest? Which, let me just say this: I want to brag on you. It sounds better coming from me than it does you. So everybody doesn't know, Hoosier Tire Midwest is one of the largest Hoosier Tire dealerships in America. I
The
go up
large.
there, the largest. Thank you. I go up there, I get my tires. Now you're back in the parts business. You did that about 4 or 5 years ago. We got parts, we got tires, we got fabrication. We're building race cars, we're repairing race cars. It is one stop shopping. Hoosier Tire Midwest, Springfield, Illinois. How did we get there from D&M Speed Shop?
Well, when we started the tire business, I called Bob Newton at his house. This is when they were still in South Bend.
The
And
owner of Hoosier Tire.
the owner of Hoosier Tire. And I said, I'd like to sell Hoosier tires for you, because the guy that we have here, you had to go to his house to buy the tires, and he didn't like fooling around with these silly stock cars, because he was he was a hero IndyCar racer. I mean, he was card carrying IndyCar racer, so the open wheel stuff was his main focus. And so I called Bob Newton. Joyce, his wife, answered. And just a minute, and I got Bob on the phone. And he said, "Why would I want you? I've got 3 other dealers in that area." And I said, "Well, I know all 3 dealers, okay? And I can outsell them."
Wow.
And we did. So we started there. Uh, Things got real tough. I went down and run a wheel company for Rich Clement, Bart Wheels.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife would come down, one weekend out of the month, and I would maybe go to Springfield. This is down in Conyers, Georgia.
You were living down there to make a living.
I was living down there, yeah. And so that went on for about 3 years.
Oh,
And
my.
I got a phone call from Dennis Sherman from Hoosier Tire, and he said, "How about coming back to Hoosier? Me move back up there." And it was interesting because the one of the big wigs at Clement Wheel, his boy, come to help me down in Georgia. So I wasn't real happy about that, because he had different ideas of how things should be done. So I said, they said, "We'll make you a warehouse, but we want you to change your name to Hoosier Tire Midwest to be more
Hoosiery."
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
did that,
I'll be
and
darned.
that helped us. We, being a warehouse, now we're selling. We sell in Ohio, Missouri, Michigan, Wisconsin, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, down in Kentucky. So we have a nice area to work, and we just kept trying to grow it.
Wow. So in reality, it is still D&M Speed Shop. You just changed the name.
I actually have the old sign hanging on the back wall back there. Memories.
It has an alligator on it too, as it should, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're finding out a lot, and let's have a little bit of fun now. So, Justin, your father called me a year ago, and you know how much your dad loves you. and he said to me, Herman, how many starts do you have in the Xfinity Series? So everybody look behind my head right now. NASCAR gave me that. I ended at 547 starts. And when I was redecorating, this area, I had that sitting around for, since 2015. NASCAR gave me that. 2015 was my last NASCAR Xfinity race in Iowa. So I'm at 547 starts, and that's where I ended. And I have the most starts. I have fun with it. I poke them. I'm the mayor. I'm the greatest. Of course, we're poking them, right? So Gator wants you, Justin, to have more starts than me. And I want that too. And when that happens, I'm going to be there. But we got a nemesis. Who's that other kid right there that's going to outrun me too? What's his name again? I forgot.
Jeremy Clement.
Jeremy Clements. Now, there's Jeremy. How is this going to end? Between both of you, how is this going to end? Is Jeremy Clement? I mean, when you and Jeremy pass me up, man, I just wish I could come congratulate you first. But it sounds to me like Jeremy's going to outrun me. I'm going to congratulate him. Then you're going to outrun Jeremy, and Jeremy's going to have to congratulate you. What do you think?
I think if I'm looking at it, to be honest with you, I think Jeremy's got this one in the bag. To be honest, I'm super proud of how many starts I have. I don't know what the number is currently. I think
482. You have
482.
482 starts.
Yeah, I can't get there. I can't get to your number. Not with where my head's at and what I believe is my.
We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. Keep going.
Jeremy's got to be right around the 500, 505 mark, I would say, pretty easily, because the 2 years that I was in Cup, he was still racing in the Xfinity Series. We started at a similar time, but one of the cool things for me is you talk about full circle moments. I'll never forget. Years and years and years ago, Jeremy Clements was an up and coming dirt late model racer, as was I, right? And I don't remember if they were at Cherokee or at Gaffney, but Jeremy was racing a super dirt late model, and he had his hands on the steering wheel. Drive shaft came out, and if you ever shake Jeremy's hand, you'll notice it right away. But the whole inside of Jeremy's hand was ripped out. Right, he had his hand on the wheel. The drive shaft come through the inside of the car, tore out the whole inside of his hand. They were going to cut his hand off.
Oh my!
And his dad begged them not to cut his hand off. And the doctor said, "Well, I can give him 24 hours, 48 hours at the most, and if it's not healing itself, we're gonna have to cut it off." And kind of miraculously, the blood vessels and the way that his hand was damaged, they ended up growing around, and he's had to put a lot of reconstructive surgery into his hand. I know it's been super painful. They actually, at one point, they even sewed his hand inside of his skin. They sewed his hand to his body so that it would allow his hand to heal. And Ed Petroff, somebody that's been around the dirt late model world and sponsored a lot of late model racers, myself included, growing up, and been integral in kind of that St. Louis area. But really, his influence has gone really worldwide. His daughter Michelle called me one day and she said, "Hey," she said, "you and Jeremy are similar in age," and she said he's really struggling. Right, he's not able to be in a race car, and if I send you his number, would you call and talk to him and just up his spirits and just have that conversation?" And so I picked up the phone and I called Jeremy Clements, and really didn't know Jeremy that well, other than we had kept up with each other in the racing world, and both young drivers. I think we were probably both 14 or 15 at the time.
And his father has one of the most famous motor companies in the world, Clements.
Yeah, and I had a Clements engine for my race car, so I was, I mean, they were and still are, honestly. If you talk to anybody now, they're one of about two engine builders that everybody is sought after in the dirt late model world, and honestly, I think they build the heads, or they machine the heads for probably majority of the engine builders in the dirt late model industry. But we had a conversation and we became friends, and that friendship has gone for a lot of years. And I remember him, having to make special attachments for his hand to be able to shift gears and all kinds of stuff. Once he was able to heal himself up, but
they asked him. They asked him how they wanted his hand to be, and he said,
like a steering wheel. Does it surprise both of you? I've interviewed Jonathan Davenport, Bobby Pierce. I've interviewed some of the greats. You think of Jeremy Clements, and I had no idea you had this relationship with him. Does it surprise you where Jeremy could be running, the greatest dirt super late models in the world? Jeremy Clements could be running for 100,000 to win at Eldora, and yet Jeremy just wants to be in the Xfinity Series. Have Gator or Justin, have you both thought about Jeremy as you two kind of share this most Xfinity starts in common? Why does he run Xfinity when his dad rules the dirt late model world?
I've asked that question 1,000 times. I've asked Jeremy that same question because I don't know. Jeremy's had success. He's a NASCAR Xfinity Series winner. He's been somebody that has had a lot of success on track. I would say of recent times, it's maybe been a little bit more of a struggle than what it was, 5-10 years ago. But they family owned team. He's never driven really for anybody else. He has family in the sport. In the sport of NASCAR outside of the engine building business. But I don't know. I don't know that I've ever understood that part of it.
"Can I throw can I throw something in there?" Jeremy was on the short track to go to Childress with Chevrolet, and then the accident happened. That's when all that happened. But it was planned that they were going to run Jeremy RCR.
I'll be darned. Well, I want to let everybody know that I'm extremely proud when Jeremy breaks my record. I can't wait to go and congratulate him. And now this leads me to this, and this is a serious one, and I think it's fine for me to ask this. I've thought about it. You just gave a small look, Justin. You said, I don't think I'm going to make it to your record. So my mind is thinking right here on Kenny Conversation that you're headed back to Springfield, Illinois to run Hoosier Tire Midwest. I don't know that. Tell me how wrong I am and tell me what's up. Why did you say you don't think you're going to break my record?
That is an opportunity. Yes, 100%. I think about probably closer to 5 years now ago, we made the decision that was the direction I wanted to go and be a part of the business. And I'm a minority owner of the business currently. At some point, I've watched my dad grow this business for my entire life, and there were opportunities for him to sell, and there were opportunities for him to get out. And he's asked me point blank years ago. He said, "Is this something you see yourself doing? Is this something you want to do?" And it's always been 100% yes. 100%. I want to see this business go and grow and carry on the legacy that he's kind of created. Is that tomorrow? No, it's not tomorrow, but
It
it
can
could
be.
be. It could be. But I think for me, I've looked at the ownership side of things a little differently than some. As far as I'm concerned, whether I have ownership or not doesn't really matter. My dad is been the man in charge. My mom and my dad have been the family in charge since day one. I don't have any intention of changing that. And as long as they are willing and able to go to the office, I mean, he's sitting in his desk right now, and he's there most days, right? If he's not there, he's usually traveling to a NASCAR race to be with me. But most days he's in that desk, and there are days that the employees there wish he would be at a NASCAR race. But for the most part, um, he's sitting there and he's looking at the computer, and he still understands the business very well, and what it takes for that company to be successful. And for me, I've made it very clear to him, I don't want to take any part of your job that you don't want to give away. right? I want you to run this business until the day you decide that, hey, I'm either done, or unfortunately the day that we're putting you to the ground, right? It's gonna, one of those is gonna come first. I don't know which one's which, right? But one of them is gonna come first. But I'm also enjoying the moment of being able to spend time with my family and have conversations like we're having right now, and understand my dad's mentality and his work ethic and his, learn from somebody that I respect immensely as far as what he's been able to accomplish. So for me, I still feel like I'm competitive. Obviously, I won a NASCAR Xfinity Series championship yesterday, or last year, not yesterday, last year. Um,
It
it
was
was kind of like
yesterday.
yesterday, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just don't know I don't know what the long term of that looks like. I feel like for me, my kids are growing up. I'm watching them grow up. I'm watching them get older. Um, I don't want to miss it. I don't want to not be there for it. And I don't know. I still love the sport. I still love what I do. I wouldn't change it for the world. But I also feel like there's a lot of other stuff that I can accomplish in this world outside of being behind the wheel. And I love the younger drivers that are coming up. I've helped quite a few try to be better. I'd love to do more of that. I've had the lucky opportunity to be on the broadcasting side a little bit. You've gone down that path. I really enjoy that. I'm a people person, and I just love people, and I feel like there's still value in this sport, even not being behind the wheel. And so, I don't want to get to a point in my career where the job is telling me that I should have quit. I want to quit before that day comes, and I still feel like I'm young enough and healthy enough to be able to go do something else. I don't know. I just feel like I feel like I know this sounds dumb, but I feel like the more I'm doing this and the longer I've gone, the more God's kind of called me to figure out what the next chapter is at some point, and it's probably closer than farther away. And I've always said 40 was my number, and I will be 40 next year. So I'm not calling that a definitive, but I definitely feel like it's kind of where I stand with it.
Okay, I don't ever give my opinion on Kenny Conversation, because Kenny Conversation is about celebrating. And on Kenny Conversation today, we are celebrating you two, your glorious relationship from Springfield, Illinois to the championship. I'm going to give you my opinion, and this is the first time ever on Kenny Conversation. Jeff Gordon, Jeff Burton, Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, Clint Boyer, Ryan Newman. Do you know what they all have in common?
I do not.
It's not a trick question. They both were done. All of these drivers, Jeff Gordon, Jeff Burton, Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, Clint, all of them were done right around 42. I asked Ryan Newman, I said, Ryan, and I asked Clint Boyer. Clint was the most interesting. I said, Clint, you quit so early. And I almost think this pertains to you. Clint Boyer said, Herman, I started racing at such a young age. By the time I got to 42, I felt like I was 60. Same with you. You know what my notes say? Right here. I still got lots of highlights. Here's what your notes say. Started at age 5 in quarter midgets. Age 5. You've been racing since 5. You probably feel 100 years old right now in racing age.
I just left the chiropractor right before I came here. So yes, I do.
Okay, I'm still making you feel good. You started running UMP dirt super late models at 13. You started running ARCA at 16. It's okay, Justin. If you want to go home, your work is done there, because you are like Clint Boyer. You started racing at 5. And when Clint told me that, I thought, I'll be damned, I never looked at it that way. Rusty Wallace, a lot of these great drivers that were born in 1957, Schrader, they started 16, 17. Your era, it was the Tiger Woods era. Tiger Woods, everybody, their kids in a race car at At 7.
Got to get younger.
So you've been racing a long time. Did that make you feel better? My little speech right there.
No, it validates my decision, Kenny. I feel like I watched you go have fun on all this dirt racing whenever you retired from the sport of NASCAR. You went out and did all this dirt racing, and you're having fun again, right? It's not that I don't have fun on a regular basis. I just sometimes I think it's easy to let life pass you by because you're making a paycheck, and let's be honest, in this sport you get a lot of accolades for being on the racetrack every weekend, and it the self promotion aspect of it is fulfilling, right? When people want your autograph, when people want your picture with them, right? Those are feel good moments because you know that at one point you were the other way around. You wanted to have somebody's autograph or you wanted a picture with that celebrity or whatever it was. So it's hard to say, hey, I want to walk away from that, and I don't.
You'll never be away from it. Don't ever worry about that.
I don't want to walk away from people. I just,
Yeah.
I listen. I got to spend all weekend with my daughter. I was at the All-Star race on Friday night. I got to practice to qualify the 5 car for Kyle Larson. I left there and I drove to Asheville, North Carolina, and I got to watch my oldest daughter, Harper. I got to watch her play softball for 2 straight days. And I was softball dad. I was Harper's dad. I wasn't just an Allgaier. I wasn't a race car driver. I wasn't, I stood under a tent. I stood in the concession line, and I bought my coffees and my food just like everybody else. And I got equally as frustrated when my daughter didn't do the things that we practiced in the front yard with softball, right? But I realized that there was no place I'd rather have been in that moment than watching her play softball, right? No different than my dad, really. I'll never forget Terre Haute, Indiana, Grand Nationals. I had just won. I had just won the Grands. My dad was at DeCoin. He was working the ARCA race.
Hang in there. Hang in there,
Yeah,
Dad.
he's getting
Hang in
emotional.
there. It's been a long road. It's been a long road for you too.
And he remembers the story very well. So my dad finished the ARCA race. He got in the vehicle. He drove as fast as he could get to Terre Haute, Indiana. I had won the Grands, and I had just gotten my trophy from winning the Grands, and I'm coming back with this trophy that was it was a 6 foot tall.
Taller than you.
It's 6 foot tall trophy, and I was about 2.5 feet tall, right? And I remember walking back towards my dad with that trophy, and I remember seeing him, and the emotion that came through me at that moment. It didn't matter that he wasn't there for the race. It didn't matter that he missed the racing part of it. The fact that he drove like he did to get to me, to watch me get that big old trophy, it meant the world. And I've always said that I know I'm gonna miss things in my kids' lives, right? Kenny, you miss stuff. Dad, you've missed stuff. But as long as I'm putting effort in to make sure that I'm there for my kids, no matter what the circumstances are, it's gonna be worth it. And I'm gonna do my job every day to make that happen.
So for everybody that's listening on Dirty Mo podcast right now, they're both crying.
We are. I am. You're right. I'm not. I am. I had to move here because my phone.
You're fine, buddy. You're fine. So Kenny Conversation is on YouTube and on Dirty Mo podcast, and it's a very emotional time. We wanted to celebrate these two. So Gator, it's kind of back in your court right now. Just comment. We're at an hour and 15 minutes now. It doesn't mean we got to stop, but we're going to start winding down. It's been an incredible journey for you, buddy. Gator, you were extremely successful. You're a man of the Lord, and you've always been. I've heard you. You've talked to me before. You've taught your son, little Gator, Justin. You've taught him to be a man of the Lord. Justin's got his wife Ashley. He's got his girls Harper and Willow. Gator, what's it make you feel like that your boy listened to you? He's a man of the Lord. He's got his priorities straight. I know it sounds corny, but it's just the way it is. I love my girls. What's it make you feel like, Gator, that your son listened to you? You instilled the Lord and being a good dad. You've done a good job, I think.
Well, my wife has. Dorothy's been the one that held everything together, really, but I'm beyond proud. I don't know what the word is, but whatever it is, beyond proud. That's how I feel.
The great thing is he's not, Justin's not out smoking dope and drinking beer. He's always been straight up. I've always found that fascinating. Uh, you know, years ago, I missed too many days of school, and they said we're going to hold you back a year, Kenny Wallace, unless you tell us why. So I stood up in front of the principal and everybody, and I said, "Look, I'm not out smoking dope and drinking beer. I'm going to be a race car driver, and that's what I do." And now I'm in the Hall of Fame. Justin, why do you think you stayed straight laced and a good kid?
Um, I mean, I think racing. I tell young kids this all the time. The ambition of racing, it it's a it's a bug that you catch you can't get rid of. I mean, we all know that, but the ambition of racing doesn't allow for it, right? It doesn't allow for the yeah, we have a good time, and yeah, there's days where you slack off, but for the majority of it, you're working hard. You're pushing yourself to be better. I mean, if I'm the same race car driver tomorrow that I was today, I'm gonna get passed by every driver that I work harder today at 38 years old and a veteran of the sport and a champion of the sport than I ever worked when I was starting out in my career. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not doing something to make myself better on the racetrack. And you hope in job you can work really hard up front, then you can coast later on in life, right? And that's not been the case. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. And all those parties that I missed as a high schooler, or all those moments that I could have taken as a younger guy, been out partying, whatever. Um, it Racing just always had that place. And I've been lucky. My wife and I started dating at 15 years old. We got married at 19. I've never known anything different, and I don't want to. Right? I told somebody within a couple of months of dating my wife that I was going to marry her, and we were 15 years old. And I look back all these years, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Right? And we've been blessed with two great kids and all these things, but that's she's been a lot of the driving force, no different than my mom was for my dad. The driving force and what it takes to go up and down the road every week and all the traveling. I spend more time on an airplane than I do anywhere else, and I laugh because I said, if I could get all the hours that I've spent in an airplane traveling, or in a car for that matter, traveling all these years, I'd have a lot of time to do fun stuff. But
Yeah, when you do decide to move back to Springfield, your wife is going to say, "Go run the dirt car.
Get out of my house.
Get out of this."
I'm gonna tell you, and you commented on it when we started the show, but you talked about JEGS, and you talked about hot rods, right? That was the first thing you brought up.
Yeah.
We put a 72 Chevy pickup truck together at the shop a couple of years ago, and I've fallen in love with the classic truck world, and
Ryan
I love
Newman
it.
too.
My 72 is an old farm truck. It's like a brand new old farm truck, right? Looks like it rolled off the showroom floor, but it's a long bed. It's nothing fancy. But I'll be honest with you. There's a moment in time where I can see myself sitting in a lawn chair behind a pickup truck that I built and a car show and enjoying life. So at some point, when I'm done with all of this,
Justin, no, you won't, because I did that a couple years ago. Everybody goes out and they got their lawn chair and they set it beside your show car, and I sat there about a half hour and I go, "What am I doing here? I got work to do." But I can't get the car out because it's in the middle of all this car show.
What a wonderful conversation, everybody. And with that, we are zoning in on one of our longest Kenny conversations. You guys have tied Ron Kelly, Earnhardt, Dale Jr., Tony Stewart. You're wonderful people. I want to thank you so much, both of you, for letting me talk to you. And Gator, Big Gator, Kenny Schrader once said, "I don't want a do-over. I might mess it up." Would you want a do-over, Gator, or are you really happy?
I'm happy.
I live by Kenny Schrader's one phrase, by the way, just so you know. I had never heard that phrase, but he's right. There's one phrase that I live every day by, that came from Kenny Schrader. When you ask him what he's doing, the only plan is there is no plan. And I live every day like that. So,
and my advice to you this too. I told Don Perdome and Walker Evans, I said, well, I think I'm going to slow down. I think I'm going to quit at 60. Don Perdome and Walker Evans, 12-time off-road truck champion, and Don Perdome, one of the famous drag racers of all time. They both come up out of their lawn chair. No. Perdome said, I miss it so much. Keep digging, keep going. Of course, I'm doing it with my dirt car here at Peevely, and winning. NASCAR tore me up because to compete at the highest level in the world like you are, there's a sense of misery required. And we all know, the world knows that you are doing a lot for Chevrolet. We know that you're just not driving that Xfinity car. We all know that they're using you. They're not using you up, but they're using you because they know how good of a race car driver you are. So there's a lot more to Justin Allgaier. And we'll end on that. How much time do you spend helping Chevrolet?
well, so we work on the simulator, right? In the tech center there, we work on the simulator, try to make it. Everybody knows simulators are what's happening in the sport of auto racing, right? Whether you're at home on an iRacing rig, you're going to go to Peevely and race at Federated Auto Parts I-55 Raceway, right? You can go there and race it on iRacing, but to take it even a step further, we have a simulation program that we run every week that helps with setups and it needs a driver line to be able to run those laps. New drivers coming in, they drive that simulator to learn the tracks and to learn the cars. So somebody like myself that's been in the sport for a while can sit down and help with correlation of how that works. I do the wheel force program, so we test the Cup Series car on tracks that NASCAR kind of specifies, and it's got a bunch of data on the car. I don't even want to know how much the car is valued at because it's a lot. I know that it's everything on that car is instrumentated. They can tell if I flinch in the car. They can see it on the data. It's pretty wild. So I do that. We obviously do all kinds of stuff, behind the scenes with younger drivers and at the track, and it's probably a full time and a half job in itself. But the more I do that, the more it helps me on my racing side of it. So it's hard to not want to be a part of that program whenever it helps. But I've been lucky enough. I've raced a Chevrolet majority of my career. It was a small time there when I was with Team Penske that I wasn't in a Chevrolet, but for the most part, I've been in a Chevrolet since day one, and they've supported me and been a huge part of what I do. And you could look back on it and say that I've effectively helped other drivers have success also. But I also know that's what's driven me to have the success that we've had, and our team to have the success that we've had. And it's been really, really cool. So each of the manufacturers. I mean, if you're able to align yourself with a manufacturer for any period of time, you realize how much they give back to the sport, whether it be on the dirt track side of things or on the NASCAR side of things or NHRA or IndyCar, whatever it be. So for me, I've been pretty lucky in that regard, and it's a lot of time, a lot of commitment, but I'm still here doing what I love to do. And to your point, Kenny, you wanted to quit because it was your own accord, and I've been lucky enough to be in this sport for a long time. And when I do walk away, it's going to be on my own accord, not on somebody else's. And there's not a lot of people that can say that, right? There's a lot of people that have been retired from this sport, whether they wanted to be or not. And I've been pretty lucky to do the things that I'm doing and still have an opportunity to go do it.
Yeah, Don Perdome and Walker Evans, they said, no, go as long as you can. Get it out of your system. Gator, on that note, when your boy right there, when Justin got in Kyle Larson's car last year at the Coke 600, when Kyle Larson could not make it there because he was running the Indy 500, when your boy got in that car and had it up in the 10th spot from last, that had to be a highlight as a father to watch your kid do what Kyle Larson's doing. The talent level of your son was shown bigger and brighter that night. Tell me about that night.
Well, let me tell you what happened after the race. Chief come up to me, put his hand on my shoulder, and said, "You have to be so proud of your son." I said, "I am." He said, "You don't understand. He did everything exactly the way that we asked him to do. He did everything right. Can't get any better than that, you know." That was pretty cool.
And then he goes to the Daytona. Then your son goes to the Daytona 500 this year, and with a half a lap to go, he's not in the race. And he picks that lane going into turn one, and he gets that whiskey car number 40 and makes the Daytona 500. So things are good right now, don't you think, gentlemen?
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to end just like that. Things are looking great for the Allgaier family. I love you all.
Love you, Herm.
You're wonderful people. Remember, everybody, as we say every Kenny conversation, Dale Jr. called me up. He said, Herm, we want that Kenny conversation. So you can watch Mike and Justin Aggar on Dirty Mo Podcast. But if you want to see their pretty face, you can go over there to the Kenny Wallace YouTube show too. Until the next Kenny conversation, we'll see you later, everybody.